It's unclear who was the first to offer an autofocusing anamorphic lens, but it may have been Sirui. It also may have been Blazar. I guess technically Sirui is first to market, who knows. If you want the look of anamorphic, but you also want the convenience of autofocus, this lens might be your answer. This is the brand new Sirui 40mm T1.8 1.33x, and it is designed for APS-C sensors. So let's check it out. This lens comes in Sirui's new packaging, compact box that has a flap that opens up to a case strap in a bag, some QR codes for service, and a nice little zippered carrying case. Inside, the lens is vacuum sealed. Plastic front lens cap, plastic rear lens cap, and that is it. This lens is compact, not exactly pocket friendly, but most anamorphics are big. Construction is all metal and glass. Weight is 630 grams. Tolerances are tight. It feels well constructed. Although it has autofocus, there are gear rings so you can set up focus pulling motors if you want to go that route. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount with electronics, USB-C port for firmware updates, and a rubber gasket around the mount for weather resistance. Aperture ring is up first. It's nice and grippy, smooth to rotate with good resistance, and if you prefer, you can turn on clicks with this switch, and then you are rewarded with this sound as you move from f1.8 to f22. There is a Sirui logo here, lens specs, autofocus lock, and an autofocus manual focus switch. The focus ring is next, and it is very light to rotate, smooth, well done overall. The only issue, and this might be a big thing for some folks, is there are no hard stops on either end, so it just rotates forever. An important note is that this aperture ring and the focus ring is all electronic, so moving it simply tells some circuit board to adjust motors inside the lens. There's no mechanical connection, think steer by wire. Huge 40 T1.8 on the side and a front 80mm outer diameter for soft boxes. Around the front, there is a circular lens element, lens specs, minimum focus of 0.6 meters, and a 77mm filter thread. I think this lens is intended for a camera such as the Sony FX30, so here's how that looks, and the combo is nice. It's not overly heavy, but it also is not something that is small enough that you'll take it anywhere. Now, in anamorphic videos, I like to discuss the 3 reasons why you'd consider getting a lens such as this one. First is the aspect ratio. What an anamorphic lens does is it compresses an image to fit a 16:9 sensor, and when you de-squeeze it, you get a picture with natural black bars on the top and the bottom, not due to a crop, so you get, in theory, improved image quality without losing information like you would with a crop where you're just chopping off the top and bottom of a normal picture. This lens is 1.33x, which means when you de-squeeze it, you get a 2.4:1 aspect ratio, which is what most widescreen cinema aspect ratios are. This is what they call scope, and some may prefer that 2.35:1 or 2.39:1. Basically, whichever you choose for your final timeline, this lens ensures that you don't waste too much image information. Reason number 2 is flare. Anamorphic lenses have unique horizontal streaks that go across the frame due to their lens construction, and this is cool according to Hollywood. Oftentimes it's blue, but with this lens you have that option as well as natural color streaks, which is what I chose. And the last reason is the bokeh. Traditionally this is oblong ovals, and they can look quite exaggerated with a long focal length. Anyway, let's take a look at some footage that I shot with an FX30 and this lens. Ready, set, go. Now, traditionally, I would say that these samples were shot with no editing whatsoever, but in this particular case, I shot in S-Cinetone and I threw on an RE LUT on the footage. And then I played with the exposure a little bit, and really that was it. Very simple, but you'll see quite a difference between the clips that I showed in that montage and what I'm going to show you as I'm talking about this lens, because these following clips are going to be unedited. In terms of sharpness, there's no easier way to say this other than saying this lens is not sharp wide open. Really, this lens begins to look sharp at around T4, and in reality, it becomes more of an anamorphic lens at around T4 as well. I'll discuss that later. Now, all of these samples were shot wide open at T1.8, and as many people like to comment on my videos, you don't need super sharp lenses for video. Somehow this lens works just fine wide open, and if you aren't critiquing, you probably wouldn't say a thing. If you are looking for a sharp anamorphic lens, expect to use this at around T4 for most of what you shoot. There is a touch of barrel distortion, just a little bit of vignetting, but overall not bad from a distortion standpoint. Chromatic aberration, that is a problem wide open. You see a lot of green and purple on contrasting edges. I should add that these shots are all using an ND filter, which can help or hurt performance. Chromatic aberration improves as you stop down from T2.8 and T4 and beyond. Now let's discuss anamorphic things. The 1.33x squeeze factor is perfect for the Super 35 sensor in the FX30 or A6700 or any APS-C camera that you have from Sony. D-squeezed makes for that 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio. If you want a wider look with bigger black bars on top and bottom, you'll have to use something with maybe a 1.5, 1.8, or 2x squeeze factor, but what happens a lot of the time is that you crop out the edges and you lose a lot of sensor information, at least quality. So for me, shooting on an APS-C camera, the 1.33x is great. Flare. On this lens, the flare is strong, and what I mean is you get some spherical type lens flares with very bright light sources. Shoot into the sun and you can't see anything but flare. It takes over the entire frame. So there is that, and then when you look at the anamorphic style flare, well, it's about medium subtle. It isn't overly distracting, especially with the natural color version where the flare takes on the color of the light source. This is a preference thing, however. Some people will say it's too much, others will say it's too little. For me, I think it's just right. Enough to let you know that it's a special lens, but not enough to distract you from the subject that is in the frame. In terms of bokeh, this is the one area besides sharpness where this lens, I'm going to say, struggles. And I don't know, maybe this is what some people like. Wide open at T1.8, you get hexagons. It's not like you're looking at perfect ovals, it's just hexagons. Stop down, they do get circular again, but at 40mm, you don't get much bokeh, especially when you stop it down. And I should add that this lens is a 40mm, but after the 1.5 crop and then the 1.33x squeeze, de-squeezed, what you get is about a 42mm full frame horizontal equivalent. Overall, this Sirui is more of a mix between an anamorphic and a spherical lens. It's some sort of hybrid, which again may appeal to some and not to others. Now, I want to discuss the autofocus. In general, it's fine. Accuracy is good in most situations. There were a small number of times where it wouldn't focus. For what reason? No idea, but it seemed to struggle with complex scenes. It does track and do eye autofocus, but only at a certain range. You get too far and you lose it. That is less of a concern compared to the general jumpiness of the focus system. It's not smooth and slow like you'd want in a cinematic scenario. And then there is the noise. Yes, the noise gets picked up by the onboard microphone, and it isn't the most pleasing sound either. And then you add the focus breathing, which again isn't ideal. So this lens really ends up solving a problem in a sense and opens up several more. It's kind of like a few steps forward and maybe a small slide backward. I will be the first to say that shooting with autofocus was so much less tedious, easier, less time consuming. So if you want an anamorphic look and you don't want to pull manual focus, this may be your solution. But if you look at this lens and you think, wow, it has gear rings on it, I'm gonna set up my follow focus system on it and connect up my focus motors and start to pull focus manually, I would discourage you from that idea, as the lack of hard stops, at least on the manual focus ring, would make everything quite frustrating, at least if I was trying to do it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.